All right, we are live here today, so let's make sure. Yep, we're live. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Charlton.
And I am Felicia Charlton.
And we would like to welcome you to the next session of the UNTRUTH Virtual Summit Social Media Takeover. Today we have
Ed Fields with us today. So Ed, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, good evening. I'm Ed Fields.
I think you froze, Ed.
He's frozen.
We love technology, but for some reason, Ed is frozen. So let's see here. Let's check on the social media on Facebook.
I am just a
difficulties.
Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties. So Ed, I think you are freezing. So hold on.
okay.
I think okay. We can hear you again.
Let's
Go
try
for it.
Yeah, try it again.
Okay, y'all. So hello, I'm Ed Fields. I am just honored to be here with the Charltons. This is really a special time for me personally. I am sitting in a seat of gratitude. I am here in Birmingham, Alabama. I work with the mayor's office of the city, but equally important, I serve in a lot of spaces where people are really challenged to lead at home, at work, in the civic space. And so I find myself being a support to them in a variety of ways. And I can explain what that means as we go through our conversation. But good evening, and thank you for having me on.
Awesome, awesome. We're going to talk a little bit about introducing UNTRUTH, but also we're definitely getting UNTRUTH with you as well.
So a little bit about UNTRUTH. Well, Ed, this is the social media takeover, as you well know, but the actual summit takes place October 7th and 8th, and Ed will be giving a presentation that he's going to talk about a little bit later. We have 12 speakers from all over the country, and we want to make sure you join us. And UNTRUTH is about untruthing the lives of professionals and letting you know how we're surviving, how we're coping, how we take care of our wellness, and how we exist to be beyond our professions. And so UNTRUTH is about acknowledging the truth, telling the truth, owning the truth, and releasing any lies that are keeping you bound. So Ed, are you ready to get UNTRUTH?
I am ready to get UNTRUTH.
All right, I'll go ahead and start here with the first question. What is one job that people wouldn't have expect you to work?
Well, I've had 30 jobs by the time I was 30 years old. So I have a very deep reservoir of jobs that might surprise you all. I will tell you one of my favorite jobs that might surprise some folks, and that was a school bus driver. I drove a school bus twice in college, once in Wisconsin, once in Montgomery, Alabama. And they were beautiful, transformative times for me to really get to know my community, but also to connect with youth in a way I didn't expect. So when I retire, I might go back to being a school bus driver. Plus, they can really play cards, really play cards, like play bid, whiz, spade, do all that before you go out and start running the routes.
Well, that's definitely something I never knew about you. So the next question is, what is something you wish your parents would have told you that you had to learn on your own?
Man. Right now we're in Birmingham. We're going through the Birmingham Promise and helping kids go to college for tuition free, courtesy of City of Birmingham and its partners. And we're finding so many kids that just don't know how to use do the FAFSA and understand financial aid, loans, and the long-term impact that they can have on one's life. So I've had to live through some challenges because of that. Dealing with student loans and whatnot. I wish that they would have known more so that they could have told me more. But I'm grateful to be here and thankful for the lessons that we get to share with others now.
And Ed, that is so amazing that you went from somebody needing the service to somebody being able to provide insight to the youth in the community for the service. That's phenomenal. So Birmingham Promise is what it's called.
Yeah, birminghampromise.org. Every graduate from Birmingham City Schools will have the option to attend a 2 or 4 year institution in the state with no tuition costs. It's a last dollar scholarship, first
Fantastic.
of its kind, and really a game changer for not just the students, but for their families who often incur a lot of student debt to get their babies to college for the first time. And now they get to go to college, come back, and be productive citizens with less debt on them.
That makes a lot of sense. So I'm interested in, of course, offline learning a lot more about that.
Right, no doubt.
Speaking of student loans, you have known Felicia for years. You have known us for a while. You have spoken at our wedding, reciting a poem, and also Felicia from undergrad, and also a fraternity brother of hers as well. How did you and Felicia meet for the first time?
Well, I met her. I remember exactly where I met Felicia. She was with her best friend Tommy from our hometown, and they were just brand new students at a house party. And I don't know, we all just connected, and they just seemed like they would do well to have some big brothers around them that will be looking out for them. So that's been my position in her life, and she's just been a light and an inspiration to me. And then, of course, it's been an honor to meet you, to be at your wedding, Eric, and to see how you've taken care of her and the kids and everything. Your expression of manhood, I think, is very distinctive, and it shows up not only alone but also as a couple. And it's like a living ministry. And now you all are doing UNTRUTH, which is to kind of share your values and to imprint on the world through this legacy. So I'm happy to be a part of it. But I've been rolling with Fee for 25 years next year.
Yeah.
So,
Amazing.
And it has been a wonderful brother and sisterhood, just an amazing friendship. Ed used to feed me when I was hungry, and he used to make sure that we were taken care of, and it's just been a blessing ever since. So I'm so excited to still be a part of your life and to be part of your family's life as well, and for you to be a part of my family's life.
Yes.
same here.
Blessing to know you as well throughout the years.
So with that, before I start crying, with that, you always do this, Ed, but with that being stated, what is one thing that you wish people knew about you that you think that they might not know? And I'm going to get these blinds before you answer that.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to keep talking while she's getting the blinds. How about that? Y'all, there are so many facets to our lives and so many facets to us. And it can be frustrating for people to only see us in our narrow dimensions. As a businessman for some years and as a city leader now, it is a little frustrating. And I wish that people understood that one of my primary identities is not as a businessman and not as a city leader. Certainly they're important parts of my walk, but one of my core identities is as a creative.
Wow.
As a poet, as a writer, as a calligrapher. And frankly, it's just how I see the world. It allows me to, I'm a creator and I'm a daydreamer. So I spend a lot of time up here and it supports my creative expression and how I solve problems in the business world and at the city. So that's the one thing I would say that others would not really know or maybe not fully appreciate. It's just how much being a creative is central to my identity.
And I'm going to have to ask you, since you put it out there, this is not on my list, but how do they coexist? Because you said you obviously do what you do, you're civic, you're in the community, you lead initiatives, but you said who you are at your core is a creative. So for someone who might be a creative, who's still trying to figure out, how do I still make a living for myself? How do I balance how I feel with the work that I do? How do they coexist for you?
Well, it starts with perspective. It's about symphony, and it's not about separation. It's about symphony and understanding that God has us walking many different paths at once. That they're not in series, they're in parallel. And so I would say for anybody that is a creative that's struggling with the idea, oftentimes creatives feel like they're compromising themselves or their art by thinking about things from a market perspective, that I don't want to be a salesperson, I don't want to be a business person, I am a creative. And so they wear that as a badge of honor, and it is a badge of honor, but it should not be to the loss of other identities that could support what it is you want to do. One of the main things I learned as an entrepreneur and someone who doesn't have a natural predilection towards sales is to stop saying that I'm not a salesperson, and to really understand that if I really believe in what I'm doing, who I'm doing it with, what I'm doing it for, then maybe it's not a sale, maybe it's advocacy. So creatives are often advocates as well. So that's how you embrace different facets of yourself, is just to reframe it and understand that if you're adding value in other people's lives, then that is noble. And what you want to be able to do is to do that more, and to reach more people, and to save more lives, and to support more people. And your art could very well be the thing that does that. But the way you do that may be to scale in a business way. So that's a long answer, but that's how I've sort of repositioned and reframed.
It's an excellent
It's an excellent answer, and it speaks to my position as a coach, a consultant, and a playwright and an author. So I'm very glad that you spoke to that, to say that the two can coexist, and it's all about perception. So thank you for sharing that answer. I really appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
What is one thing you wish people knew about you more or understood about you?
I think
well, separate from being the creative, actually, I mean, that's the primary thing. I would say that if there were other things that people could really understand and appreciate, it might be just how much I understand and appreciate people. I've recently been going through some coaching, and my coach, and you know this because you're a coach, Fee, when you're bringing people through that process, it's a lot of introspection. Mm-hmm. And I found that one of my strengths is actually being able to read a room, to read body language, to do one part of empathy. But what I haven't done as well is the other part of empathy, which is to actually give back what you're receiving from people. So early in my college years, I embraced this philosophy of Stoicism, which is in the traditions of some Greek philosophers, but it's really about preserving and being, let's just say, being very stable and very, I'm looking for another word for stoic, but it's effectively not be particularly expressive, and to really receive things and to remain on guard, so to speak. So it's a little selfish on one hand, but on the other hand, it's a protective mechanism. So I've been working through that notion that if I do want people to better understand me, I'm going to have to reflect back to them what I see in them.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's powerful. Wow. Okay. With that being said, you talked about some things that you're working on internally. So what is one thing that you would tell your 21-year-old self? And this was Eric's question, by the way.
It's a great question. What would I tell my 21-year-old self? I don't know if he would even be present enough to listen, because he was doing so much. But I was fortunate. I have had a few elders along the way. And if I was an elder in my life at that time, knowing me like I know me, it would be to be bolder, to be bold, and to just raise the bar of expectations a bit. I had an experience in high school. I was doing Boys State, and without giving you the full story, I was tall enough to dunk.
You are freezing. So we're gonna wait till he comes back in, and we're gonna have him start that part of the story, because it was sounding really good.
It did.
And I really want to hear this, because you see why Ed is a speaker here, and so we're gonna hope that he refreshes.
I couldn't pause.
So Ed, I hope you can hear us. Your screen is cutting back and forth, and your story about being tall enough to dunk. So for some reason your screen is frozen, so you probably can hear us, but we just you. So you're back again. So we're gonna see can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Awesome. So your story stopped that you were tall enough to dunk, and you got to start there. So that's where you froze. So you were tall enough to dunk. Go.
I was tall enough to dunk. I wasn't quite able to palm the basketball, but I could hold it in my hand I could certainly jump high enough to be able to dunk a ball.
Well, I don't know what happened to Ed's connection, but we're going to work to get him back on. We're not going to come out of our session because, or we might have to, unless he asks to be brought back into the room. So hopefully, while we do that, I'm going to see if we can get Ed back in the room, but I don't really want to close the session out because it's going so well. You can see why Ed Fields, who is chief strategist for the Birmingham mayor, city of Birmingham, Alabama, why we selected him to be a part of Untruth, because he has so much depth to him within this conversation, well beyond what he does. He's showing you and telling you who he is as a man and as a person. So I'm hoping that we can get him back in the room, but his connection is playing too much, and this is Untruth, so I can say that.
I like the fact that how he framed people who don't consider themselves salesmen as advocates, because those of us who are in the entrepreneurial space, sometimes that is a hard lesson to learn, is to train yourself, even though you're not a salesman. You are advocating for your space. You're advocating for your industry, for what you do. So that was a great lesson to learn.
I agree with that. And I know as we've grown our business and we've worked together, people don't talk of the untruth about business. People don't talk about learning how to sell and the art of selling and viewing it differently in terms of advocacy and being an advocate for the value of your work, how important that is. I know I struggled because we took a huge leap with going out and being in business together. And then I changed course with the business based on being a creative at heart, which you can see why Ed and I get along.
Yes.
But I flipped it and reversed it and changed course on Eric with being a creative in the business. And the play came, he says, out of nowhere, but it came out of me. It came out of the depth of who I was.
It was always in you. It had to be birthed out.
It did.
In the right time.
And that was the time. And so we had to learn how to readjust and learn that we had similar focuses, but there's some things that we do separately in the business outside of each other. Like you focus on workplace happiness, diversity and inclusion, knowing thyself, that work. And I focus on resilience, trauma, fear, and facing those things, imposter syndrome, in order to help people move forward and get better. But the theme under which we do it is the framework of pause,
pivot, and transcend.
Pause, pivot, and transcend. So we had to learn, and we're still learning since we untruthing. We're still learning how to work together
every day.
Wow, really?
Every day. It's always a learning process.
It's always a learning process. So what I'm going to do, guys, is because Ed's interview was amazing. And so I'm going to get out of here. We're going to stop this and we're going to pick back up and get him back in the room because I need to finish the rest of this Boys Day basketball story. So thank you guys for being patient with us. Technology is on our side. And so we're going to just see what happens with him and get him back in here. Way to pivot, honey.
Thank you.
All right, we are back.
We are back. We had a slight technical difficulty.
Yes, but you are watching Untruth with Felicia Charlton
and Eric Charlton.
And we have with us Mr. Ed Fields. And if you watch the first half of it, which you really need to, there was a lot of gems dropped in there, but we're going to pick up from where we left off. Ed, thank you for getting the technology piece together and rejoining us.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, you were telling us a great story, a basketball story.
And we want to hear it. But the question was part of what would you tell your 21-year-old self? And you were segueing into that story. So go ahead.
So what I was saying is raise your expectations, brother. Go bigger. That is going to be a big part of what will make your life different and even more special. So the story I was telling you was from Boy State. When I was in high school, I was preparing to give a speech, and the speech was about why I was qualified for a particular position. And so as I was working on the speech, I realized, I could run to the end of the court and actually dunk the ball and make my point. And to that point, while I was tall enough to dunk and while I could jump high enough to dunk, I had not dunked the ball to that point in that moment. And so I had basically a theater full of people. It was high stakes. And I ran all the way across the court in the gymnasium, and I went up to dunk the ball. And it went in. I actually did dunk.
I was expecting something very different. Okay.
No, it was great. But what I learned is the night before when I was practicing, I was trying to understand why I couldn't dunk before. And I realized that I couldn't dunk before because I wasn't aiming high enough, meaning that I could jump high enough to dunk, but I was always aiming the ball right at the rim. Unconsciously, I was aiming the ball right at the rim, and what I needed to be doing was aiming above the rim so that the ball could clear it and go in the hole. And so that was a lesson learned. I was in high school, but I would say that mentality was something that I fought for some years. And so it's only been until recently that I've elevated my goals high enough so that I have clearance to succeed at any one of the efforts I'm pursuing.
Wow. That was an amazing story of learning how to elevate your goals just by changing your mindset, your strategy. So that's phenomenal.
And oftentimes we can get in our own way by not reaching up high enough, by not being beyond our horizons.
That's right. So even when we think we are. So that's what I want everybody to know. It's not like I was walking around thinking that I was not aiming high enough. I wasn't. I mean, it's just empirically true. I wasn't. A lot of times we don't have something like a goal, something like a basketball goal that shows us exactly what we need to be aiming for. It's far more subjective in our lives. So just think about that. How many other spaces was I at that time not aiming high enough for it? I would say that that's something that many people may have encountered in their lives unknowingly. That's why they need people like you all and programs like UNTRUTH and Charlton to really help people, guide people through what might be artificial limitations. And sometimes you just need help along the way.
Yes. And I love that too, of your mindset and your belief and needing and admitting and being humble and vulnerable enough to say, I need some help. I need some things. There's a lot of things in me that I already have, but there's some things that I can get and garner outside of myself that can elevate me higher. And it's okay to seek those things, even as professionals at 21 or at the ages that we are.
Yeah, we don't want to say the ages we are.
I didn't say the ages because it's irrelevant. So at the seasoned age of over 40, right? I'll just leave it there.
What is your favorite quote? Something that you abide by or live by?
I have a few. I love quotes. I tuck quotes away. I'm a bit of a quote magnet. I just love them. So I have a couple that I treasure. The one that sticks out most is from James Baldwin. If you know from whence you came, then there really is no limit as to where you can go. But the one that I've probably been reciting the most in my presentations is from a Japanese poet. And he says this effectively, that we should seek not to imitate the masters, rather we should seek what they saw. So in the season where we lose John Lewis and we lose C.T. Vivian, it's not about duplicating and replicating their efforts. It's about pursuing what they pursued, which is a truth that lives within this time and in this generation, and a gift and a vision that's given by God for us, not for them, but for us. And so seek not to imitate the masters.
Wow.
Seek what they thought. Yeah.
Say it again.
Seek what they sought.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now, Ed, let's talk a little bit about you being a part of UNTRUTH. So we talked about UNTRUTH being a wellness summit to talk about who we are but beyond our careers and talk about our mental wellness and our relationships. So what is your presentation title for the UNTRUTH Summit?
My presentation title is Self-Care, Pathways to Power. And when I say power, I'm really talking about personal power. Our energies, our personal energies are perishable. They're not evergreen, they're perishable. And so we have to have daily rituals and things that sustain us and carry us through to the next moments of presence. But what I want to talk with your audience about, and for the conference registrants, and I encourage everybody to go ahead and get registered. You have some time, but don't let it get by you. I really want to talk about an immersive experience. So self-care does have a place in our daily lives, but I want to talk about a particular aspect of self-care, which is the immersive experience that I believe that we should all have and that we should continue to have throughout our lifetimes. So that's the essence of it. And so there's a few takeaways that I'm hoping that people walk away with, mostly some inspiration and some clear examples about why it's important to have self-care. And then I want to give some very practical tips, something that people can walk away with, no matter what their station in life, the single mom, the person with multiple children, the person working third shift, the person who's a caretaker for other people, or maybe the person who just doesn't know what the heck self-care looks like for them. When they leave your conference, I want them to have a couple of very specific resources that they can go to and start to explore and maybe go a little bit deeper for themselves.
We're just elated to have you here. We know that people are going to be blessed by your presentation. Lives will be changed. I'm amazed at what we've already talked about. So Ed, before we wrap up our Untruth session, is there any untruth questions that you have for Eric or for myself or for both of us?
Well, I would just ask why you all are doing this.
Okay, Eric.
Well, for me, in terms of the conference, is we tell ourselves a lot of I say untruth, but a lot of falsehoods about what we how we view different things, whether it's workplace happiness, whether it's like you said, being an advocate, or just along the line. And we wanted to talk about, to come together and have business professionals, subject matter experts talk about the real world implications, especially now with COVID and with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's a special time to talk about releasing our truths, releasing our lies, and talking about those subjects.
And for us, we also talked about being human. You know, we've been married for, it'll be 18 years in October. You know, and I love to take a good picture. I love a fancy photo, but there's so much behind all of that. And I just felt like it's just time. And that's how I operate. My coaching, my consulting is through transparency. So I love using my life as a testimony to allow people to see that, yeah, you can take a good picture, but who is the person and what does the person need? And so I find a lot of people asking me, well, how did you switch your career? How have you been married for 18 years? Well, there's a lot of things the lies that I told myself about what it would take to make that happen. And then there's a lot of lies I told myself about my inability to start a business. I thought that I would always have to be stuck where I was. And so once we both came to a place where we were unhappy in our careers and we needed a change in our marriage, we just realized that the more we operate in transparency, the better it is. And then how can we help other people who are dealing with some of those same issues? And Untruth came to us and said, this is a good way to let people know who we are behind what they see.
Mm.
And
Well,
if we're experiencing this, I know other people are too.
Yeah. It's courageous, y'all. It's courageous. I love it. I think it's going to be fun and exciting. And I would just say, as a closing note, I'm convicted and convinced, having worked for over 20 years with really just high performing people. That's really I've been behind the scenes supporting high performing people my entire career. And not everybody does it the same way, but I do find several themes. And one of those themes is that it does take courage, and that if you actually want to get to the next level, you got to go through it. you got to go through it, and you don't have to go through it alone. So I'm just thankful that you all are building your tribe and bringing people along in that. So I look forward to going a little bit deeper in October at the UNTRUTH Summit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Ed Fields, you have just been untruthed. So thank you for your participation, and make sure you register. The link will be in the comments October 7th and 8th. If you want to hear more from Ed or our other 11 speakers from all across the country, join us as we help you on your journey to healing, well-being, and self-care. All right. Have a good evening, everybody.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thanks, Ed.
Oh, peace. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
We out? All right.
Yeah.